Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2022 film Night's End. It's a Shudder original and it's coming to Shudder on Thursday, March 31st. So for that reason, this is a no spoiler review and hopefully it helps you make your mind up. Now, at first when I was watching this film, I was thinking, "Oh, this is pretty solid," but as it went on, I started to have some issues with it, which I'll obviously talk about here, and so my rating started to tick down some. So stay tuned till the end to find out where my rating ended up. Directed by Jennifer Reeder, who's done films Knives and Skin, as well as the Holy Hell segment from VHS 94, which VHS 94 was good, and a lot of people really loved it too, so good on that. Written by Brett Neveu, who also wrote a script for The Earl. Now, Michael Shannon is in this. I love me some Michael Shannon from an acting standpoint. For the horror community, probably best known for his role in Bug, which, outstanding. Really good film. Him and Ashley Judd did phenomenal in that film. But Michael Shannon's good in everything he does. Well, as is Ashley Judd. But Michael Shannon's in this. Now, I will say, he's wasted for the most part, in my opinion. Like, the acting he does and the lines he delivers, obviously they're done very well because it's Michael Shannon and that's what he does, but he was kind of wasted. They definitely should have made his character a lot bigger, unless it was a situation where they would have had to pay him more and they really couldn't do that. So I could kind of understand. I mean, if you can rope a bigger name in like Michael Shannon, like, use him as much as he's going to be willing to be in it. So I don't know if that was an issue where as much as he's in it was as much as he was willing to, or as much as you could pay him. I don't know the situation, but it was cool to see him in it regardless. So, to reiterate, coming to Shudder Thursday, March 31st. Quick synopsis, I don't want to give too much away on this. So, it's about a main character who's staying home for the most part. This is a film that feels very much born out of the pandemic, out of the COVID pandemic. So, a lot of people will connect with it in that way. Kind of like the film Hellbender recently that I did enjoy. It's definitely got that pandemic, filmed during pandemic feel to it, and a lot of themes that are kind of focused on that type of stuff. And those themes in this film, I think, are pretty cool and work quite well. It's just towards the end of the film, I think it starts to kind of fall apart from what it was setting itself up to be initially. Like, how it was established and how the film goes for, I don't know, maybe even more than half the film, maybe like 3/4 of the film. I was like, okay, I'm into it. I'm digging it. I'm liking where this is going. And then it kind of changes tone in the film and gets kind of ridiculous. But I'll talk about it a little bit more. The life situation of the main character is very effectively established immediately in the film, and that is important not only to understand the character and see where the character's journey ends up going by the end, but it's just important to, like, get the feel of the environment. And this is where I'm talking about the whole, this is born of the pandemic type thing. So, very important, very well done, in my opinion, to establish the character's surroundings, the character's mindset, all that type of stuff. They don't actually take long to set up the actual intrigue in the film. I like that. They didn't waste a whole lot of time to get to it. That said, once they finally get to it, the way it plays out, there are some issues with the pacing. Not terrible, but there are definitely some issues with the pacing that you'll feel. It's an hour and 22 minutes with credits. So it's not super long. It's not wasting a whole lot of your time or anything, but I definitely think that it could have been cut down a little bit, maybe about 10 minutes or so. Nothing crazy. So the pacing's not bad, but the pacing's not good either. But it's kind of tough though, because what's at play here until the end of the film is definitely something that benefits from the film going a little bit slower paced, because you need to soak some certain things in. You need to see the slower, I guess, pacing for the main character, if that makes any sense. It lets you pick up on more of the feeling, more of what's going on, more of how, their mindset, stuff like that. So, yeah. So I I was thinking that the pacing was kind of slow and being like, no, but this is important for the actual story and what they're trying to tell. But then there started to be a little extra in there that I was like, this stuff definitely could have been cut down. So, like I said, not crazy, but like 10 minutes maybe could have been cut out. The dialogue is pretty well written. I do have to give credit for that, because dialogue is not easy to write, especially when you have multiple characters, because you need to write people a little differently. Otherwise, everyone sounds exactly the same, and nobody wants characters that are all exactly the same. Like, it's not realistic. So, dialogue's well written. Kudos on that. The film feels like it's born from the pandemic, yes, and for that reason, it resonated with me in a bunch of ways, with the way that I experienced the pandemic and the way that I've also experienced one of its big themes in the film, which is isolation. And there's kind of this tendency, or at least there was for me and has been for me, of like feeling like you're fine when it comes to isolation. You're like, oh, this is good. Like, I'm naturally kind of like an introverted person anyway. So I'm awesome. It's awesome, like having your own time and like not feeling like you have to be, have these obligations to go do things with people. But then the pendulum swings the other direction, and then you realize at some point, maybe I need a lot more human interaction than I'm actually getting right now. So I thought this was great, but now it's just become the opposite issue that I was having pre-pandemic. So those types of things kind of really do come up within the film, and I think that's good. It was important to put those in the script, and people will, connect with it like I did. There's one character with pretty comedically exaggerated line delivery. Now, I don't know if this was intentional. It seems like it may have been intentional, but this gets to one of the big issues I have with the film, which is that, okay, so that character is introduced before the ending makes a big tonal shift in the film. And so it's kind of like this character and the way this character is acted and their line delivery is kind of like the harbinger of things to come. Of saying, like, here's a weird tonal thing. It's almost a little bit comedically overdone. This is where the end of the film is going. And that's where they ended up. And that character is involved with that. So I don't know if that was intentional or not. I could see it going either way, but it doesn't work. It really does not work for me. Maybe it'll work for other people, and that's cool, and you can let me know in that case in the comments. But it doesn't work for me. The film feels conflicted. Like, they had two ideas of what they wanted to do tonally, and instead of going with one, which would have worked way better, they tried to go with one for like 3/4 of the film and then shift it for the last quarter, and it just does not go well, because it kind of undoes all the good stuff that they laid down in that first 3/4. I really just wanted a very different ending for this to have it be more serious. Like, take itself more seriously, because it presents itself as very serious. But having said that, maybe that's now my recommendation for everyone is, if you are going to watch this film, don't take it too seriously from the get-go. Like, know that it's not, I don't want to say not trying to be totally serious, because maybe it was. It just happened to get ridiculous at the end. But it feels like it wasn't trying to fully be serious. So just know that. There are some small comedic moments that actually are kind of funny. So talking about that comedic aspect being a problem, in certain moments it's not. When it's just like a small funny thing here, a small funny thing there. Like, that's fine. Some of those things are integrated pretty well. It's just the ridiculous tonal shift that it takes on at the end. And you're just like, okay. There's some kind of crappy CGI in this, unfortunately. It's not so much like how the CGI is executed. It's the whole idea of using this CGI for this thing in the film. Just looks bad. It was not a great idea, in my opinion. But then again, that's my opinion. That's why I'm throwing this out there. And that's why I also encourage people to comment and let me know if you have differing opinions. I always do that on my videos, because I love to hear other opinions. Maybe I'm looking at this oddly or didn't consider something. I don't know. The big twist becomes very easy to predict in this film, unfortunately. It telegraphs its ending pretty early-ish on. They should have kind of held their cards a little closer to the chest for a bit longer. But yeah, pretty easy to see where it's going. And for me, it wasn't that interesting of an ending, to be honest. Plus that crazy tonal shift where I was just like, what is happening here? Why are we doing this? The film covers the challenges of isolation. I kind of already talked about that. That is one of my favorite aspects of this film, is how it covers isolation and feelings of isolation and dealing with isolation and what isolation can do to people. Yeah, definitely worth potentially worth just watching the film for that. There's a lot also focused on dealing with your personal wellness while trying to figure out what version of yourself to make public. I feel like that's something that pretty much everyone struggles with for some, in some degree, or to some degree, I should say. Like, you're yourself privately, and then you're a version of yourself publicly, and like, how much of your private self do you want people to see publicly? And that is at play here, and that's another interesting aspect to it. So had they stuck with the whole isolation thing, had they stuck with the whole, personal wellness and the struggle of like showing, trying to figure out how much of yourself to show to the world, if they would have just carried that all the way through, I would have really enjoyed this film. And I enjoyed the first 3/4 of it. It's just that final quarter just was not enjoyable for me at all. And it just like really threw me for a loop. So out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm gonna give it a 2.5, because ultimately I do feel pretty conflicted about it. While I was watching it, probably until about the 3/4 mark, I was thinking, this is a very solid 3-star film. Based off the ending, could bump up to a 3.5. But then as the ending started, I was like, oh no, this is a 2.5. And then I even considered going to a 2. Because that ending, like, I just don't understand this last quarter of the film. Like, it just, I don't know. Missed opportunity, in my opinion. But anyway, that's just my thought on it. Go ahead and put your comments down there. And we can talk spoilers in the comments. Go ahead, we'll talk spoilers in the comments. Tell me your opinion, love it, hate it, in between, and explain at least a little bit, just like a sentence or two, about what you did or didn't like. Because when people just say, I like it, I didn't like it, that means nothing to me, honestly. Like, I just want to know why. Like, give me insight into you and how you experience films, specifically this one. But also, if you just want to talk about horror in general, we can do that too. Regardless, thank you for checking this out. Do me a quick favor, hit subscribe if you haven't already. That is your way to repay me if you appreciate this video or any video I've ever done. Literally, that's the way you can repay me. It is quick and painless and costs you nothing. So it keeps me motivated. Please know that, and it's very much appreciated. So also hit the notification bell button, because then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which at this point I'm doing 4 a week, which I think is pretty good. Regardless, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this, and until next time, keep it brutal.